Okay, I think we'll just go live with that. So, the first thing I need to know, if anybody's actually... Hey Thorolf, how you doing? How is my volume? I would bet it is a bit louder. So, since last stream, I put a cloud lifter device in between the mic and the input, which should raise it by several decibels. The quality has dropped now. Am I peaking out? Is that why? Do I need to actually lower? Yeah, I am hitting the red on here. My voice is also a little bit worse today. Let's lower that a little bit so I don't peak out as much. Okay, that's lowered by 5 decibels. How's that? It looked like it was peaking up into the red often there. It sounds worse. I recorded myself and it didn't sound terrible, so how do I test this? I test this by watching myself on here, unfortunately. Yuck. This is the one I've got the audio through, so it's the only one I have the chance of listening to it properly. Ooh. That's lost everything, hasn't it? It's all muffled. Okay. Let's go to default. Okay, so that's the out of the box Go XLR profile. Which doesn't sound as bad, but it does sound terrible. There's way too much background noise. I hate streaming. It's such a stress. Let me minimize that so it's not. Okay, so bass, mid, and treble are all zeros on the equalizer. Gates, compressor. So I've lowered myself. Let's see. Okay. So that should cut out some of the air. I should bring the volume up a little bit. Okay, that's sounding a little better now. Okay, but I hate the sound of my own voice. How does that sound to you now? Okay, good enough to go with for now, do you think? We can get by with that as a streaming audio. Okay. So what I changed was, after last stream, I got told actually by the YouTube the volume was significantly lower. So I realized I didn't have the cloud lifter in place, which I do normally have, but I had it in my game setup. So I pulled that out and put it in here, which does, I think, adds like 10 decibels of volume to the output. Then I messed around a little and changed the gate a little bit on my profile, but even the default Go XLR was too far off there. So I don't know. I suppose one day I'll learn about this audio. I've got to pull this rig apart anyway soon, so I'm not going to stress too much. I have to rejig it in the middle of February, so for different equipment. Because right now I have the Go XLR going into the Stream PC and the mic coming in there, then splitting the mic out as input audio to other machines. So it's a complicated setup, even for streaming. But I do work using the same microphone and setup, so it does allow me to have one mic, one pair of earphones to work, to Discord call, to stream. So that's the goal. So, oh well. Okay, so thank you for coming in and hanging out. That's not where I'm going now. I'm going to somewhere else. So this project might be a little bit more manageable. This is another project that I started to try and help with the problem of complexity in the main project, right? So my main project is not open source, which means that you can't just go and look at the code that you want to go and look at. If I'm scrolling through things or I'm messing around talking about one thing and there's something else, you don't have that luxury. So the plan here is a project that I'll do a couple of days on stream that is available to everybody else to download and tinker with as they want. I will get the basics of the architecture in place so that there is something to work off of. Because if I say, hey, everyone go at it, there'll just be pull requests of, here I think we should do this, here I think we should do this, and the pull requests will never get resolved. And actually I do need to review a pull request, don't I? While you're here as well, that's perfect timing. We'll come back around on that afterwards. So yeah, so this project, Water Drink Water, is an app for tracking water consumption, and the goal is that it will be totally developed on stream. I won't develop any of it off stream. Right now it's completely broken because we were talking about password hashing, but I'll build it out roughly the same way as the main application, because then again, people watching the main application are actually able to then follow the same design decisions, and we can also use Water Drink Water as a playground for some of the technologies and the concepts, so that and then people can make PRs against it. With additions, etc. So that is the goal of Water Drink Water, and named in honor of Satobot. PR. So obviously, for simplicity, for right now, just simply, right? And then we can talk about how we change that out. So it's more of a educational point than it is a, hey, we're going to do our own user system, right? So we're going to do a simple password hash, allow you to log in, do a one-way comparison, and then talk about what it means to pull in a different provider, what implications that has, etc. So that we're not, so again, that project is not aimed at, hey, here's the best practice. It's aimed at, here's how you might do it, here's the other options, right? So yeah. So now your comments. So coming back to the coding challenge, we'll get this PR done, right? So going back to the coding challenge, yeah. So I see where you were going now with the whole stream reader, stream writer, so that we're both available. This mess still bothers me. This starting these threads separately and then having this referenced in here. Yeah. Oh, this is your IEnumerable version. 2 commits. Yeah, files changed. Okay, this is the version that you. Yeah. I like this, by the way, because I don't often use the IEnumerable stuff, the async IEnumerables. So it was nice to see it. Wow, there was that much more to change. But yeah, I get it. I mean, this is a preference thing, you know. I'm joking. Again, these apps are not well thought out because they are on the fly, right? So there's always going to be stuff that I do that is not what I would normally do if I thought about something, or you know, things like that. So this is just instinct. You know, people do not like seeing while true, right? So that's just that. So yeah, it's the same effect. It's the same thing, right? We're just breaking out and setting a variable. Not really. There's no debate over that piece. It's just, you know, people are like, oh, you should never while true, but you need to. I like this. I've not used before, so I get the idea that pulling strings rather than worrying about the bytes because it's actually available is a great idea. Now that does require carriage return line feed, right? Or environment.line feed, I suppose. So if the stream was not of that form, and it was delimited by something else, yeah, I like it. I think it was fine. Chat client, yeah, I like this. Again, this, because of the way this is built, it kind of doesn't feel. Yeah, you want to delimit it in some way, yeah. But again, you could still modify that to be this reading in to the delimiters and then publishing the result, right? So this is actually a really nice way of sticking that off and doing its thing, and then giving you a result when you have it. So you could actually have that just feeding something else. So yeah, it is a nice way of doing that. And the readability, obviously, you're gaining massive readability because there's less complexity to this, right? I'm not having to trim, etc. You're just saying, hey, give me a line, and then broadcast that line beyond. So yeah, it totally makes sense. Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that. It's good to see this stuff. I don't use this a lot. I don't have a need for this, or I haven't figured out I have a need for it yet. So that was really cool to see. So there we go. I think it's a better version from a learning perspective, from a simplicity perspective. And the history's retained. So there you go. That's chatty. So, okay. Water, drink water. Essa, good morning. Hi. Everyone should drink water time to time. Why there was no stream yesterday, I couldn't fully understand the reason. It didn't snow a lot. It snowed enough for them to delay schools, and my wife and daughter, and they delayed schools again today, but I'm just going to stream. But they delayed the schools, which meant that I had family and dogs and things to handle. So in that time that I would normally stream, today I was like, I'm going streaming. So I may have to run and help or whatever, but as they start to get ready for school, but we'll see. Thanks for looking at it. It was nice to have a second chance. No, that's exactly why I stream it, right? I'm not I learned something there. The yield return. Oh, now I see it. I was like, because you cannot describe things very easily to me, right? That's why. Sometimes I'll read something and it'll make sense, and sometimes, because again, a lot of people do end up in very technical areas, and I'm not technically technically grounded, right? I'm practically grounded, I suppose. So I do not have the long education of reading the books and understanding all the principles and the terms for everything. I pick up the terms as I go and as I understand them. So, I'm still lacking a lot of basic, what would be basic comp sci stuff in terms of being able to use the words, but I could do it or apply it, etc. So, it's easier a lot of time for me to see something. So seeing it was definitely PR also communicates it much simpler compared to Twitch chat, which is the worst way to communicate. Yeah, coding, coding by chat is never easy. It's not something I'm particularly opposed to. It is a sort of thing that I have in the past actually had people join the stream and talk through stuff or demonstrate stuff. When I first started streaming, we actually had Dota demonstrate his application on stream, and kind of do a code review as such, that can work. But other than that, that's kind of why this project, right? Because I started to realize that people were actually engaging with the concepts of the main application, but I don't want to just say, hey, that application is open to public consumption. Mainly because, and I've got to get used to this. I've got to say, I want it to become a product, right? I am aiming for that to become a product. So I don't want to open source that entire thing, because then everything becomes open to everybody else. And if I was to go on and make a product of that, well, I'm doing them a disjustice by saying, hey, that code is all mine, right? So that code is all mine. However, this project does allow us to share on stream some level of shared understanding, and everyone has the ability to go and look at the code, review the code, say, hey, I don't like this. Here's an idea, etc., and get their thoughts and opinions across, and we can review the PRs on stream, and better understand why someone might do something differently. And it might be a chance for me to say, hey, no, I've done that. Or it might be them a chance to say, hey, I've done that, this works, and for me to pick it up. So, yeah, it's a good way of sharing. Although my colleagues started asking questions about what the Chatty project was. They saw the PR. What is that? Yeah, open source contribution, right? It's I don't often pick up other people's projects because I don't necessarily read other people's code very easily. It takes me a long time to get into some things, and it's why it's probably what has influenced me the most in terms of writing my own code. I really do care about how people are reading it, and how easy it is to actually approach. Even though when I go deep, I can go into concepts, it gets a lot harder, right? And we'll go into that actually afterwards. I actually do want to demonstrate something that is going to make things significantly harder for me in terms of a refactor, but I think will help with something. But anyway, that's main project stuff, and I'll come back around on that later. So, water, drink water. What I want to do is, before people start doing PRs against this, I want to get into a place of comfort with the overall application. It's not necessarily a control thing, it's more of a if you start opening up for PRs, right, people expect to have that PR reviewed, people expect their stuff to be pulled in, and while you're still very early on, if you get conflicting ideas, it can seem offensive if you don't kind of get it, or it doesn't meld and you end up cycling over it. I've been here before, so it's really tough to actually to get a project started for Stream to then continue on with Stream. But it's not impossible, right? So we started on stories, right? We started on this story. And what I'll do is the initial work I'll do inside of Space, and then I'll put the rest of it out into GitHub, and then people can, if they're interested, can pick up the rest of it, the other items from GitHub, right? So that's the plan. So right now we're just working on the basic registration. So the goal will be, so we've laid it out similar to just in a very basic manner right now, with the aim of potentially doing the refactoring, but basically just ending up with, okay, we're going to have a service that does everything, and we're going to have an endpoint that calls the service, right? And that will just do what it needs to do. And we can then later talk about how we might refactor that and change that and apply that. So we're not starting out with the perfect architecture. We're starting out with an architecture that's more evolvable, I'll say. So what we were talking about last stream when we were working on this, and by the way, the video for this stream is the only video that got downvotes on YouTube videos. So in recent time, right? So which I would love people, if they don't like the concept, if they don't like the code, I would love people to explain, right? Because this is aimed at being a project for people to use. So yeah. Okay, so what we were talking about was password hashing, right? Because we are going to, and I explained at the beginning, right? We're going to work on the principle of build it self-contained, and then talk about how we might pull the things in. The problem with pulling other libraries in for password hash, for password and auth stuff, is then you have we have to kind of abstract the provider so that anyone can pick up their own provider, and it puts a dependency on each person to actually go off and sign up for a provider. Because, you know, I'm not putting the secret keys for my Auth0 account inside of this application for people to share. That's not how this is going to work. So we'll do our own simple authentication for right now, and then if there's someone who has a better implementation of it, even self-hosted, they could potentially apply that and demonstrate that in a PR. So what we were talking about was the whole concept of the unit tests. So we've kind of followed the same pattern for now. Again, this is all open to discussion, but we've gone with a more traditional arrange act assert inside of a test. And what we were doing is when registering an account, an email has been used, and when registering an account, an email has not been used. How will you go into making it safe? If you do it for the exercise of refactoring later, it could be valid just to do it plain text, a simple hash. So we're going to do a simple hash for now, a simple SHA-256 hash, and then we can talk about why that's not safe. Or I've not done a lot of this stuff, right? So actual authentication, I've normally offloaded to other providers anyway. So most of my experience comes around handing it off, or the worst kind of password protection, it's stored in a string in the database. Yeah. So I need to learn something here as well, right? Spicy security. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I'm willing to learn along the way here. So what we've gone into is the concept of how do we provide. So we want to say where are we gone? Where were we? Application tests. Account is registered. Successes when registering an account. Oh yeah, okay, so when registering an account, password respects hash password delegate, right, is how we've gone. So what we've done is we've fed in the ability to pass in a delegate into the service, and that delegate could pull from wherever it needs to how it's going to hash the password. So this way we can plug in a controllable version. So in this simple instance, it just calls password reverse toString, right? But the actual service itself just takes a delegate, right? And that delegate is used to hash the password. So the control is not within this service at all. The control is handleable at the application layer. And then in the application layer, when you set up that, so the way that would work is you'd say builder.services.add, we'll go with add scoped for right now because it's per request, account service, right? That's okay for that to do that. And then provider goes to, and then you need to do yeah, kind of, but you could just do. So what we did is we actually, this is actually on the whole overriding things. What I did is I created this class, or this class called password that takes a string and then has an implicit operator, toString, so you can compare them. So the way this works is you just say new password string, and it will do the, this is straight out of ChatGPT, I think. But it will then, you just write password and the string, and it will give you back a string, or it can be treated as a string. Do you know what salt is in regards to password storing? Yes, I generally understand the concept of salt. Again, I haven't done much with passwords, so it's definitely one I'm open to learning about. Yeah. No, it's just trying to gauge your level of understanding is all. I know it's better. Yeah. Yeah, I generally understand the concept of keeping of the randomness of. It's just, again, this is the realm where because of the way we are today with computing, etc. I go to auth0 every time these days, right? I've not tried to implement any sort of password behavior or encryption of any form in years. Because it's just not worth my time, right? It can be too weak, or it can be too strong, or the worst case is in this instance, right? You have to solve the testing case, right? You have to make sure you're not saving random keys. So the testing case here is very much around, hey, that's why the delegate design, right? We don't need a password manager of some form, because all it's going to do is take the password and hash it. So that's why this class kind of makes sense, and I've turned it as a value there. But this is the sort of stuff that can create a nightmare from a testability perspective, and all forms. So, you know, it's worth doing. Now, generally what this is doing is just using the SHA-256 to compute that hash and then encrypting it, putting it out in hex, is my understanding of this toString formatter. So it's just hex. And then the ability to take a string, so you can just take the string in and it will compare on hash, right? So basic security stuff, but some security stuff, right? So you would never be able to decrypt the password is the point, or you shouldn't be able to decrypt the password. And all this would do would be new password, right? So now that will work. Oof, I joined for an ad. Sorry about that. That's another downside. So I've got a combined chat, right? I've got a combined chat tool in OBS, but I miss things like when ads are going to run. So, yeah. Sorry, I'm just dealing with. I'm running Apex, by the way. Yeah, I don't know when ads are running this. Without any salt, there are tables online from hash to password. Yeah. It's not stunning, but maybe that's actually a learning piece. Maybe we could actually demonstrate that, right? I don't know how, but maybe we could demonstrate it, right? And that would be a way of actually sharing that. I have no objection to doing that. I have no objection to picking apart the problems with code, especially if we can learn something along the way, right? So that's why this project is here, right? To learn from. So, yeah. Sorry, I'm just making sure I'm finishing up things. Yeah, sharp 256. So, yeah, this code is actually there right this second if you want to go and have a look at that piece. So it's broken because the unit tests are not passing because of the password hash. So we just need to provide this with a password goes to, right? That's straight up the simplest way of doing that, right? I think we'll actually stick with this method for this second because it actually does work and it's not overly complicated, and we can talk about the need for password manager and stuff, something simple. So, yeah, let's go with that for now and move forward. The modifier read only is not valid for this item. Huh? Pretty sure we tested that one before, but anyway. So yeah, the usage of this, it will call, it will do that. Link pad. I think that's, yeah, that was me messing around with stuff on Apex's stream. By the way, if you stream development at all and you're doing something and I don't know how it works, or I'm trying to understand it for myself, I will often sit with Linkpad open and write code myself and see if I can prototype stuff. That's why. So oftentimes these tabs are right along here. Certain streams I don't do code for. Satolix, I barely look at the code. That's not. I know that drives you crazy, Thorolf, because he's developing a game and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But with Apex, he's working on a lot of unit tests and design stuff, and it's like, ooh, that fascinates me regardless, especially with the mocks and using mocks on actual objects. Yeah. So let's just make sure in isolation. So I like using Linkpad because Linkpad is a good tool for outside. I need to buy the latest version. This is Linkpad 7. Private string value. Completely forget which language I'm in. Why do I have that there? Because I'm using that there. Right, that takes the actual value underneath and casts it. Yeah, okay, so that's fine. Private string value. Yeah, that doesn't make sense, does it? That way, that works. Using cryptography. So we should be able to do var pass equals new password hello world pass.dump. That took the type. That did not give me the return builder to string. Let's do it that way. String pass. That's because it's not implicitly casting. It's just giving me the password, right? Yeah, pass.dump. Okay, that'll do. Okay, so there you go. There's a password. Because the usage case of this is to put it into a string, right? So it's one of those things we were talking about yesterday, Thorolf, in terms of operators and stuff, right? Expected behavior. This is me trying to make a more fluid API at slight cost, right? This isn't too bad in terms of its usage because, again, you wouldn't know it for the most part. This is a thing that returns a string, right? This hash password delegate returns a string, so this will implicitly be a string, right? Yeah. So you gotta balance that, and this is not a simple component of the system, so it's not like you couldn't explain why. But this is for the cost to return, because again, I could just do as string or to string on this or whatever. That would also allow me to do it, but yeah, gotta call a little bit of one, yeah. Also, the volume of the stream may be a little louder. Thorolf kindly helped me get started today. I did put the cloud lifter in place, so it should raise the actual volume. I have had to limit it though, because I was straight up into the red in OBS when we started this morning. So the cold is giving me a little bit of a deeper voice than normal. And apparently you can hear everything, including me drinking, which I don't like. Sorry about that. I'm used to using Crisp to do noise cancellation, and it catches that stuff, so I apologize. I got your snowstorm. Yeah, we only had a few inches, but it was it made a mess, so schools are on delays for the last couple of days. I would argue maybe it could be a function instead, but that is nitpicky. Yeah, it's fine. That's just in terms of readability. If that was in the actual service class, right? If that was in place of that, that would look like that. So that's why. Here, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't really matter in this function whether it's a that. I don't understand the comment. Which comment? Is YouTube active? I'm using an implicit operator to override the behavior of this so that it can be in line and be treated as string, which we had a discussion in a different stream yesterday on operator overloading, because Unity has some funkiness where if you test an object from whatever it's called behavior against null, it will return true. Yeah, kind of. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying if I have an instance of a password and I try and treat it as a string, so there is an implicit problem with doing it this way, because I have to treat it as a string. If I say password, right, if I do that, or var even, right, and do pass2 dot dump, it'll give me the object type, right? Yeah. I definitely keep track of that, Thorolf. I would love to go through that. I think we need to get further with this project, so it's more of a complete project, but absolutely, we can definitely do a security stream, or a non-security stream. I was going to mention that the sounds was better. Yeah, the volume should be much higher. I actually have lowered it by 5 or 6 decibels. And also me having a cold is going to make it even deeper, but at the beginning it was very muffled. Yeah. Amal, good morning. Thank you for finally... YouTube, I didn't know if it was working because there was no YouTube, so yeah. I only got 70-something% on the C# language test on Pluralsight. That doesn't... use it. That's all you need to do. You just need to... When you see stuff like this, go off and tinker with it, right? Learn more how to use it, why you would use it. Oftentimes it's the whole having a hammer thing as well. Sometimes you get that hammer and you go off and make everything a nail, right? That sort of practice. Yeah, you got to get better. You just got to use the language. Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things I've heard about, but never took the time to look up, so I was surprised just how easy it was to find. So yeah, the difference there is, so what Thorolf is saying is he would argue that instead of being an implicit operator, I mean, essentially what we shouldn't do any of this, right? I just don't like putting behavior like this in a constructor, but essentially the moment you actually pass in the string, you should only store the value, right? So you could argue that this actually belongs in here. This is value, right? And now this value is that, and you could do an implicit operator. And do it that way. You could also do, now you could actually do that. So you could actually have it both ways. But he says, get bytes, we need value there. Right. Or do like a static class shard, yeah. Although having a typer on that is actually very... It's readability, right? It's, I know this is going to be a password. So that's about understanding, right? So at a glance, I see, oh, that's a password. It's going to be hashed, right? You can also use the static compare on it as well. So you can do password.compare and yeah, so there's other things. String and board. But anyway, there's other ways we could write this. I find that going on screen, so yeah, it does the job. It's not you know, there's different ways, there's different opinions, and this is kind of the purpose of this project, right? The purpose of this project is to highlight the fact that as different developers, we're going to have different opinions about how to do things. We're gonna have different experiences. We're gonna have different ways of doing things. We're gonna have had different people telling us this is the right way, this is the wrong way, right? Yeah, and it's not something you use often, and it's not something you should abuse. I like using this stuff. I'll show you where I did use this stuff quite a lot, I think. So my bot code, is that the one? Yeah. So my bot code, webhook full. So I implemented all the webhooks for Twitch. Right, and what I did is I put them in here. I built all the events out, so every single event in the Twitch library is in here, right? So I created a class for every single one. But I did do a lot of implicit stuff, I believe. Right, so they have here we go. They have sorry, I just wanted to make sure that I'm not missing. Yeah, they have these types throughout their system, right? And they often are, so these are kind of like there's a term for this. So these are kind of like advanced enums, right? So they have, hey, it can be one of these three values. So I created these, and then what I did is I took I provided a way to convert this to string and then back to from string to contribution type. Oh, sorry, yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot how small the code's going to be on screen. Thank you. It's an int wrapped as a string, not a bool. Sorry, Apex, I missed that comment. My mind probably moved over it because I've seen way too many. The worst one is ternary bools or tri-state bools. Yeah, -1, 0, and 1 Boolean fields. Do you have a good way to handle this problem in C#? Hold on, I'll give you that a look in a second, Dota. So my point was, I normally use them here because it aids in readability, and also when it's converting back and forth from JSON, you don't notice this, right? So you're not going to care about this. When you get the object, when you get the actual event, you get a contribution type. That's all you care about. So you can say, is it contribution type bits or subscription? So all this stuff is used primarily by the JSON conversion. So that's why those implicit operators there. So those are my biggest usage of it, is to aid in that readability. So, yeah. So if you want, this code is fully available. The bot code is fully available. So if you wanted to go through that, all the webhooks in Twitch have been implemented and verified against their CLI. I have yet to worry too much about Twitch stream, but maybe one day. I hate that I know of tri-state boolean now. Yeah, there's nothing quite like seeing in a table or code public int is active, and it can be -1, 0, or 1, or even worse, someone comes along because it's an int and goes, now I can have 2. Again, intent, right? Yeah, sorry, sorry, Doctor. I'm on a bit of a. I need to get sharing between the. I can go there, code it quick. TDD SQLite. I need to get sharing between the two going. Database row. What is your challenge? I'm starting to realize now why I got downvoted on this video last time. People were looking for one thing and getting a totally different thing. I should just do a just chatting sort of. I'll come back around that. At least in C++, it's almost a bug. Like bool x is not always x or true. Yeah, this is a database row. I don't know what the columns are ahead of time. Is there a way to dynamically set an unknown number of columns? Dynamically set an unknown number of columns. Well, there's my solution. I can set a column name and type. Dynamic, I don't know number of columns. So you're representing a row and you're using JSON serialization to pull it out. Because you've got dynamic columns as an object, but you want to see if there's a way of... Right. That's very noisy. That background audio is awful. It picks up any movement. That class is a DB row. And you want to know if that's possible just in C# with string username, string int ID, email. Okay, I get it. So hold on, I gotta get my brain around where you're coming from. So new age row, dynamic columns. So there is a way of, I mean, so sorry, I'm trying to get my head around. So you called it row, but it has specific columns. You're trying to figure out if you can get... My worry here is going off on a tangent of something that isn't useful to you. So there's not, yeah. So based upon the table you feed it, but you're writing everything else. Now, what do you have when you are creating your row? Do you have an object? Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out where you are at. Transformed, create table with columns type thing. REPL tests. You see the create table statement. Create table int user varchar name. Okay, so you would want to create an object to store that in. Okay, so you have this. You have this statement essentially, right? So if we say dictionary string so you can't make it, you can never make it, well, you can, you're just gonna have to go down a very, very, very deep dark rabbit hole of code generation. So what you're doing though, yeah, so you're not, So if you want to make it a class, right, you're not actually far off. The challenge is the typing. Code generation or dynamic runtime generation would be your... You'd want to generate an actual class to represent it on the fly. But I'm thinking about your actual use case here. You actually just want to make sure that you can read and write the objects to the database and store them as values so that you can pull an object out. So there is a I'm trying to think about how to switch that direction. Because what you have here is public class person who has public int ID, public string username, public string email. That's what you want essentially, but you're never going to use this class in your code. Well, code generation can be compile and can be runtime. You need runtime because you need to be generating these on the fly. But I think you could avoid it because realistically, all you're trying to do is everything you're working with is strings, right? Unless you're writing the query stuff over the top of this already. So you need the type. Yeah. Because what I'm thinking is, if you had a mapping, I'm going to do something very simple. If you take this string split on comma var fields equals that, and then that's throwing a wobbler. So if you took that and split it, and then for each field, var field in fields, var components equals field dot split on space. So then essentially your type is your second parameter, your name. So var name equals components 0, var type equals, so then you have a lookup, right? Which essentially is switch components 1, no, other way, right? New switch. I've not done too much of these ones, right? Right, I'm getting there. So you would be able to then say, okay, well, if it's int, then type of int. If it's varchar, then it's type of string. If it's otherwise type of object, right? So then you've got a type and a name. Then if you have, I'm trying to think about the dynamic object stuff, right? So with the dynamic object, what you can do is you can create a dictionary of x, y. So you do var object equals var thing equals new expando object. I think it should be a hash map, not a string with a concept otherwise. Yeah. Yeah, with code gen you could write new class. That's what you're missing. Yeah. Yeah. See, Dota, if you Dota does stream, by the way, and sometimes streams this stuff. So yeah. Yeah, I might give you a code gen route at runtime because it sounds more fun and something that I've never tried. Yeah, I mean, it's worth going through. What I was trying to go through here is building up an expando object, and I was just trying to think about how you would define the name and type, right? So you could essentially define a class that would fit the data in, and because this will give you the mapping. What I was trying to think about then is var, but I don't think this works, because what you can do with an expando object, you can go var setter equals thing as I dictionary. I don't know if you can do this. String type. Yeah, I don't think that can go that way. I think it is really only string. No. Why don't you like that? It's an expando object. Yes, you can. Is it object? iDictionary. String object. There we go. Okay. Yes, because then what you do is you say setter. So my thought here was you could do this. I'm thinking on the fly, so if it's totally wrong, something like that. That will give you an object with name and the type. Because then if you do, because then you can do setter dot id equals, or id equals, no, you do thing. That's a dynamic object. So you do have a dynamic object there, but I'm not sure that would be perfect. What's it called? Dapper, the data mapping library, not the framework, the platform library. That is that uses expando objects drastically, because what it does is it pulls the database out. So yeah, because I would probably go with the dynamic object type and then probably end up on code generation second, because I mean, it's a lot more work, but yeah, that's what I was thinking of more. You can create an object. So this is an object now that is a dictionary essentially of name and type, but it doesn't give you the value. So if you have values in here, you could cast them to this, right? So this gives you a mapping. the problem is it doesn't store it. You'd have to still store that against your table data would still have to store its definition. And then, so the header of the data table would be the definition of what that object looks like. And then you could construct the class based off of that definition. So you'd have to just store like this information at the top and then build this object up. And then you could pull a record of that type, right? I think I want the dynamic learning measurement. Yeah. But so, yeah, if you stored a header, then you could create an object and then pull the data out into that. So, but anyway, I'll leave that to you. But I would be interested in knowing what your solution is. Yeah, so Dota's been working on this database project for a little while now, building tests around it and actually writing the language and stuff. So, yeah. Yeah, no worries, Dota. It's hard to look at the project like that and just go, yeah, here's how I would do it, when there's a whole lot of other things in the way, and you've experienced things. So, thanks for the look, Connie. Appreciate it. Yeah, Dota does stream. A little randomly. I can't do that in here. I have to go back over to there, and then I can go to does that work? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Dota does stream. All good. Okay, I need to take a quick break because I need to get food in. It's just been delivered, but I will be right back. I don't know when ads last ran because I have no concept of that when I have this screen up. Thanks, Dota, appreciate it. So I will run ads if, oh no, it looks like they just ran. So yeah, they did. You were in them. I'll be right back. Okay, I am back. My apologies for that one. I went out to my daughter trying to dress the dogs up. Put sweaters on them because they're cold. Okay, let's do some of this project stuff before we call it a day. We got a little while yet. Yeah, we got a while. So Do our unit tests pass? Is the first question. They do. Okay. So let's commit that. Passing unit tests. Password hash delegate. Yeah. So that delegate, it might not be perfect, but it does give us the ability to swap out an implementation, and the code will still work, right? We still verified the code behaves, given that it takes a hash or whatever it's called, right? You can swap that out. So that implementation is very much not tied to the actual code. So we have flexibility there, right? That's the key there. It's not about how we implement this piece. It's just we have flexibility. Okay, so all those changes are pushed, so the latest code is there. So let's try and get this actually doing something, right? So we've got the repository. What we've used is we've created an iAccount repository interface, right? And we have done nothing with it right now, right? So it's all imaginary, right? The API, we could wire this entire thing up and it'll look like a completed piece and it'll build, but there'll be no actual implementation. So we're going to proceed with that, right? So we're using fast endpoints here. We need to inject some stuff. So let's go here. No, that is the constructor. Let's create, we need a account service. Am I going to, yeah. We'll talk about this afterwards. Code generation plus Copilot, or rather Copilot plus IntelliSense, not always the best, right? So here we can say register, we can async await this, register, and then we can take, actually we don't do we? We didn't make it asynchronous, we didn't go that far. We're not being clever so far. Everything's just straight up. Yep. So we need to register request.name, request.email, and request.password, right? And the hashing will be dealt with inside of there, right? That we've established that part. That'll probably complain at me because the underlying implementation has REQ. I just don't like it being abbreviated. There's no purpose in that being abbreviated. And then var result equals, and then we'll do return. So we actually don't return anything here. Endpoint response will be a, oh, this is the messy part. Results okay or bad request. Okay, so return result dot is success. Okay, typed results. So okay or bad request. Nope, you don't like that. This result pattern, yeah. What don't you like there? Oh, task from result. Just do that for a second. Okay, now type. So the biggest challenge I'm having with this stuff, right? So ASP.NET Core, this is probably the messiest component of the .NET stack, the HTTP components. So they've had so many implementations with MVC, APIs, WCF. They've had that many implementations that you never know which type you're actually including when you want to return an HTTP result, right? This is an HTTP result from ASP.NET Core. That's the problem. The problem is I'm being silly. Results here is not the result that I'm passing back. Result here is the Microsoft version of that, and it wants to inject generics into me all the time, right? So this is a HTTP result from the HTTP stack, ASP.NET Core HTTP. This here is an Ardales result. I don't want to put HTTP down into my service layer. That would be bad. So yeah. So that's why that, and then this is now possible because now I'm actually waking up and figuring out what I need. No, come on. What am I missing? Cannot convert expression iResult to return type. Okay, or bad result. Part of the problem is that I'm not doing. So what do you like now? An iResult. Method, delegate, or event is expected. See, there's an OK result in MVC as well. What am I missing? With async stuff, this is way easier. What am I missing here? Hold on. Fast endpoints. My response. The challenge of picking up a different library and then jumping into it. You get used to how to handle it one way, and then when you have to handle it a totally different way. Endpoint without request, cancellation token, okay. Right, not found. So the result. This is a newer style that I've not done. Results okay. So I'm basically saying it can be one of these things. I don't need a response here. Typed results to okay with a response, but I don't have a response. Type results not found. Interestingly, this has results there, but this doesn't. So there is actually different ways of doing this. But anyway, because I'm not awaiting anything here, that's why I'm struggling there. And it won't let me do that because it expects something. I'm just gonna see. Why don't you like that? That's fine. Class name is not valid at this point. Yeah. When you can just do. Hold on. And that's because it's not a task. Task.from result. doesn't really matter what I'm doing at this point, because this is all going to change, right? I need to learn my way around what this sort of pattern is meant to look like, right? Because it won't like this now. Did we try this first? Right, it doesn't like that because it doesn't like casting it to... What does it complain? There is no implicit conversion between OK and bad requests. So these two types are not type. This bad request is this cache result bad request, which is a results cache, right? So these are all different objects. These are, no, they're all results cache. Right? No, they actually are implicit. They're different things, but they're all iResult. Normally when you're doing this sort of stuff, they inherit from the same base class, so that you're returning a result type, and this is okay. So this doesn't like it because these two are different types, so this ternary operator won't work. Right? So if I do if result, again, Copilot is success, return task.fromResult typed results.okay, and this is again going to challenge the tooling, because it's going to go, oh no, you can do this differently. It's going to try and do it for me. I don't need an else there. Typed results.bad request. Right, so this will accept this. That's going to want to do that. Okay, so I've got to wrap it both sides, which I don't think is readable, but whatever. If they were nested, if they were inherited from the same base type result, then that would have been fine the way I had it. I think that looks more confusing, so I was doubling down on trying to get it to work the other way. But again, this fast results, fast endpoints library has this style, and this is becoming more common. It looks like this result style. Does results have some utility functions? Possibly. Results start. Yeah. So that works. So typed results. Results is a static partial class. That would help, right? Yeah. But again, their examples don't use results, right? So I've got a feeling that might be... Is that still going to whine at me? Task from result. Yeah, there we go. That's kind of what I wanted to write the first time. That is interesting, though. Thank you for the suggestion there, Thorf. I find that reads easier than multiple tasks from results in the same line. And again, eventually this will probably become asynchronous anyway, so this task from result isn't necessary, and this can just return, so it aids in the readability. And we're not even going to... My point of doing this is it's not even going to work yet, so it doesn't even matter. There's nothing to actually store it. But we can wire everything up as if it is going to store it. I can understand this stuff. Yeah. The preferences started to definitely become, so I like this results library. It started to make sense, and I was, I've seen the evolution of C# over 20 years. I've seen the different styles and different things and libraries come around, and there's so many different opinions, and different programmers come in from different languages, and they implement libraries the way they want to implement them, and sometimes they become difficult to use because you have to work around them, and sometimes they feel natural. And result is definitely one where I like this style of not throwing exceptions or whatever. I like this ability to say, yep, this is a conflict, this is a success, etc. So this style is definitely interesting. And C# has adapted again. Yesterday, when Sato was navigating down the tree of inheritance, that's not often. You don't see that a lot. You don't see a lot of inheritance. I don't use a lot of inheritance. The only areas where I'm really going to be using any form of inheritance and stuff is if I'm sharing behavior, and even then it's only 1 or 2 layers at the most, or I'm implementing a more complicated system, in general. So I'm not really leaning into the OOP nature. Yeah, I was watching Rust the other day, and there's actually some pretty good features in there. I actually did install Rust Rover. So I do have Rust Rover installed now. It looked kind of interesting, I'll be honest. But again, for me, I'd rather spend time understanding this in the language I use day to day than I would going off building something new in a new language, because right now I don't need to understand any principles. I need to understand specifics. Yeah. Yeah, so with the links as always. Yeah. And I still want to explore railway oriented design. That is something that is I want to look at. Like if you have a result, you can just do my result ? Which will give you the result. Yeah, that syntax is a little bit weird to see, but I get it. The developer I was watching was pretty good at explaining it. Because you'll just go whoop, out, failure. Yeah, railway-oriented programming. Interesting that Milan is one of the top results. Yeah. Yeah. Again, I'm in my 40s. I'm entering into the back end of my career, right? So for me to start picking up new languages at this point, I have to have a good reason. I'd rather focus on continuing to improve my skill set in the language I use. Yeah. Railway-oriented programming. It's either a success or a failure. Yeah. So again, yeah. So this sort of stuff is applicable because this is style, right? This is code I might read or might help my code become more readable. So picking up the style does not hurt. And that's what this is doing, essentially. If you look, if I go into the account service now, go to the implementation. This thing error, it's just branching based upon doing that. So exploring that technique more is going to be we like putting names on things. We like putting different names on things, right? And you've got to know to look for them. So it's why streaming is actually probably evolving things more rapidly, because there's a lot more sharing of information, right? And that's why I think dev streaming in general is better if there's more of us. I don't care if we're streaming to 100 people or 5 people or 10 people, whatever. It doesn't really make a difference. It helps us share that information and share these techniques sooner. Whereas 20 years ago, you relied upon finding a blog post by one of your favorite developers, you know, for me, Scott Hanselman was always the person I would keep a close eye on, because he was in touch with things before he went to Microsoft. So yeah, it's just more available these days, and I think it's I don't do it anymore. I just do the thing I'm going to do, and if someone says, "Hey, have you seen this?" I go, "Oh no," and then I see if I want to adapt it or change it. So all about growth, though. I love your way to think and spread knowledge. Thank you, Kenny. Thank you for the bits. I appreciate that. Thank you. I need more of you. Well, having been in Cito Stream for a while and seen the developers that are in there, I think there is more that probably could stream and share some stuff. I used to do a lot when I was actively learning C++. Yeah. Again, yeah, this is why this project can be useful, right? And this isn't just an idea and a pet project that people can go and play with, right? And you can expand those sorts of things, that we can experiment with technologies and patterns and stuff like that, and share some of that stuff, right? So I think we're actually at the point where we need to talk about data. My dogs are all out of sorts because they've had people home with them. So I apologise if you can hear them barking, which you more than likely can, and I forget that my volume's on. Volume. My apologies. That probably went right through the mic. They're all upset because my daughter just left, so Loki stood on the back of the sofa just barking. Yes, I tried to get that cut down as quickly as possible. My apologies, but I want to keep an eye on them. I didn't realize it was going to be that loud. I didn't realize my volume was turned on. So my apologies. Anyway, what's going on? We're about to see if we can finish. We're about to see if we can add in the first component, first solid component of drink water, which is saving to a database, I assume. So we have our basic model. We've created our interface for our account repository. Our account service uses our interface, and we have some tests around those pieces, right? And now our endpoint will actually send to our account service, right? So we now have an application that won't work, that has all the right direction for the simple application that it is. Wire up account service in post endpoint. So if we were to run this app, it will fail because obviously there is nothing to it in terms of data. So data-wise, do we want to go with a simple, well, I say simple, it still could take a few minutes, not MySQL, a SQLite DB, and then wrap a data component around that so that we don't have to mess around with SQL Server, etc. And then we can create our implementation of our account repository. And this is deliberately laid out in a kind of a tiered architecture style of API, application data, Noah Wolf. Simple password right now. We'll get to OAuth later. We'll look forward to your implementation and the PR for that one. Have you ever tried working with NoSQL databases? I always hear about it. Yes, I have used NoSQL databases. I've used RavenDB, Mongo, and recently Couchbase. Couchbase we did pull from my main project temporarily. It will be going back in there at some point. I only pulled it because I had some difficulties with configuration, and I didn't want to spend my time worrying about wiring up the configuration. I want to see if I can reach out to Matthew Groves and see if I can kind of ask some more direct questions. In my opinion, NoSQL is better when you have dynamic languages. So NoSQL is useful for object storage. So my intention for using NoSQL is things like my tickets and stuff, right? I fully believe in storing the data for the thing you need it for, right? So for tickets and planning items, etc., inside of main project, that data doesn't need to be in a SQL database, right? It is just an object data, right? So pulling it from a NoSQL database makes sense, because I do believe that search is different than the actual data. So I'm not using a SQL database to do everything. Oftentimes what ends up happening is we say, okay, well, let's say this, right? We add we have an account, right? This account, we don't need to be querying it very often, and it could just be a flat object. So this could use NoSQL just as easily as it could use SQL, right? If we need to search on accounts, etc., then maybe we don't want to use that same NoSQL database for that purpose. We want to publish that information somewhere else and make it searchable. I mean, a bit of a pulled out, what's the right word there? Bit of a stretch on the example there, but the concept is there. So if you've just got data that you're oftentimes pulling and updating, etc., and you don't really care about how it's being stored or the speed at which you be able to query things on, then it's NoSQL is perfect for that sort of stuff. Because you can expand it, you can change it, you don't have to worry about schema updates, etc. As you add more object data, it can grow, and things like Mongo, etc., definitely deal better with, hey, I have an object, give me back the object. Oh, you don't have these fields. Okay, you can backfill these fields. Actually, I think I watched Tick Tick Boom struggle with that the other day, because there's actually a setting you have to say, otherwise it explodes. But because he's using Mongo for his main application. So I don't think it's necessarily a dynamic language thing. I think you definitely want to choose the right tool for the job. And I'm a big believer of having, okay, you might have, let's say I have a data system that has accounts that I can query by different fields. With NoSQL, there comes a bigger cost because I'm going to replicate those objects and store them and indexes, etc. So I might not want NoSQL for one thing. I might just want NoSQL for storing basic data, some profile data, etc. Whereas I might want the main data of the application stored in SQL database, because I can go and pull them through different APIs, etc. But then search should be a different concern, because search is not. I've worked in so many applications where the reporting, the search, and the actual data storage and retrieval, like the CRUD operations, are done off the same table, and those tables get messy. The indexes get harder to work with. The code makes less sense because you're being everything. Things are going into a little. We use databases at work, and I never took the time to dig into NoSQL during my free time. We don't use databases at work. Yeah. But again, that's why this sort of project is useful, right? We could experiment with that. You could experiment with that. You could take a branch and say, hey, I don't want to use this. I want to swap it out and use Mongo. How easy is that to do? And that's what we should be aiming for, right? We should be aiming for that simple switch out, and with an application that people on the stream understand. So, Yeah, this is all up in. So this project is in TBD Friends. So TBD Friends is an organization that I created in GitHub when I first started streaming. So all the projects that I primarily worked on just on stream, etc., are all live in here. So there's all sorts of examples. We've done things like mediators. We actually did have some larger project platform. Pizza as a service we started, and we used that as a discussion in all sorts of stuff that I got into, and that would still be pretty cool to go into. But TBD Friends, I think Pizza as a Service is pretty much the biggest project we did. It just happened to be called Pass, right, deliberately. But we created an actual project. People contributed, 4 years ago. We got into this from a design perspective. Right, we've talked about all the different pieces, the areas. We weren't trying for domain-driven design, but we started to explore all these different moving components and what eventing would look like between them, etc. So different databases, right? That's kind of why this becomes important. If you're breaking your system up, you don't need to choose the same storage technology for every single thing. You don't need to store them in the same database. That's the whole microservices concept. All right, so, but yeah. Pizza as a Service is up there as well, all the code we did on that. Okay, so data-wise, what are we going to do? I think that I haven't used Entity Framework with a SQL-like database in a long time. Well, SQL-like might be the best way of doing this and making it more approachable from a checkout perspective if you don't have to have the SQL Server attached, etc. So let's see if we can get that done. Sorry, my nose is itchy. Entity Framework or SQLite. Limitations, migrations, limitations, query limitations, datetime offset, decimal, time span, and uint. That's fine. We're not storing anything too complicated right now, so I think we'll be okay. Okay, so let's add. So I'm going to put context and stuff all inside of data right now. Again, this is not the final version of this application. This is a version that can be expanded upon, and we can talk about, well, I don't like the architecture of this. I want to move this around. I think this is the right way of doing this. And we can have those discussions on stream with the code base that we actually are aware of. Entity Framework Core dot. Let's do framework call first. So the good news is when you're doing this, right, we don't need to install the SQLite component here. We install the SQLite component here because this is the part that actually initializes that database connection and sets it up. The challenge comes when you actually have to do specifics around that tooling, that you need to know that it's SQL Server you're going to use or SQLite, but we're not at that point yet. So let's do context. I'm going to call it context for right this second. I always call it context and end up putting one context in there, but I forget that there is potential for using Entity Framework for both your read and your write. Right, and when you're doing the read context, what you want to do is remove tracking. So for the query stuff, if you're still going to use Entity Framework, if you do as no tracking on things, then Entity Framework doesn't attach the fluff around the edge, and you get faster queries and less cost there. So it is possible you would have multiple contexts, because I have done it before. I've had an application read and an application write context. For right now, we'll just call this the application DB context. Again, just making some decisions for the sake of moving things forward. Application DB context. options DB context options, right? So that now has our context, and yeah, we need accounts. So let's add accounts. Just to stop it complaining. Oh, because it removed my curly brace. Thank you. So there's our context. And now we need to do, so we have a contract. Let's create our repositories. Right. Account repository. Right. And this is going to be an I account repository. And for right this second, we will inject an IDB context factory of application DB context. Now, in my main project, I'm obviously using Ardales specifications, which kind of wraps a lot of this stuff up. So, but for right this second, we'll use a basic repository. We'll incur the wrath of anyone saying, "Hey, why are you using repository when you've already got entity framework?" Those things never get old. Pragmatism, right? So we're gonna do using var context equals factory create context, accounts add, and then save changes. That works. Go on, help me out. There you go. First to default. Interesting. So first to default is faster. Singular default will at least try and take two. First to default will take the first one, so it is slightly faster underneath. But again, about reading about intent, right? If I'm saying first to default, I'm saying there can be multiple, right? So you've got to be careful that you don't imply something. Deflux, good morning. Good timing. Welcome in to the final stretch of the stream. You did make it. That is what matters, sir. That is what matters. I appreciate you being here. Find is even faster. Is find faster? Is that an actual question, or are you talking about that? Yeah, but that's not. So that takes, if I have an ID, right? So that will be faster because it's a primary key lookup. Yeah. I don't often use find because I don't find myself using primary key lookups very often right this second. I'm honestly searching for stuff more. And in the main project, I'm using Ardales specifications, so I actually lose control of that component specifically. So if he uses find when he knows it's a primary key, that's fine, but otherwise I lose that control. That is good to learn. I did not know that. Find looks in the current cache. I've seen find used, I just don't use it. But that would make sense. So find has an advantage because it actually checks its own cache of things. Caching is something I really, really want to spend some time on as well. Actual caching, not entity framework caching. But anyway, there we go. So we have an account repository. We have a DB context. And now we need to go over here to the program. So let's add entity framework core SQLite. I'm not doing migrations. Am I doing migrations? Should I do migrations? That's the question. Probably makes more sense to use find when you're using meaningful primary keys instead of a magic number. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have, again, I lose that control a little bit in by using add specifications, because I'm creating a specification with a query parameter, so it applies a general term. I mean, if we're doing a primary key lookup, a primary key lookup is faster anyway, so we're gaining, I would imagine, that'd be worth having a look at some benchmarks for. But for what I'm going to gain from that, considering most cases I'm saying, hey, because of the way I'm designing the data structure, I'm using a GUID, I'm using a unique identifier to find my object. I'm not using a primary key, right? Now I'm indexing that field ultimately, but that's a performance pass later on. But yeah, I'm not using find in there. Okay, so let's do builder.services.add db context, add pool db context factory. I still use this, and I don't know whether I should or not. I believe this was introduced for Blazor, and then Blazor doesn't even need it anymore. Yeah, there is no such magic between EF and the database, so we would need benchmarks. No matter. Yeah. This was introduced for Blazor, though, right? Deflux. Because initially Blazor had the pooled one is a non-Blazor one, right? Because Blazor had some really weird behavior with DB contexts. I know that much. It was very frustrating. I can't remember what it was specifically, but yeah, there was some weirdness there. Should I use pooled DB context factory? I believe I should, because a connection pool is good. Without context pooling, with context pooling. Okay, so it is saving a lot of allocations. Add DB context factory is the one I use, yeah. Did you just try and do a link? Oh dear. What are we trying to link to? I'll because ESSA is a VIP. Don't worry, I'm looking. You're going to get VIP. You deserve it. Of all the people. I'm just trying to remember where you do that from. I can never remember. You're so inappropriate right now. It's on the community or something. Roles manager, there we go. We'll everyone's a VIP in my stream, pretty much. There you go. There you go, you're a VIP now. Although I'm not sure I really want you linking things, come to think of it. And I also need to get that, because it doesn't really help me, it helps everybody else in chat. Because I can't actually move to my stream PC, yeah. Yeah, okay, I don't need the one for Blazor right this second. We're not using Blazor right this second. So that is another choice, right? Later on, we can talk about what UI we put on here, and Deflux can demonstrate to us on his stream how to put a Blazor UI on this, maybe, right? Configure. So we're going to do configure dot use SQLite, and this takes options, which are options dot interesting. I'll put a Blazor UI on a console app. There we go. I don't use SQLite, so I just want to finish this up. Come on. Connection strings, that will be helpful. We'll call this the water drink WaterDB. I'm not messing around with naming right this second. Use SQLite. Does it take a did it actually take a connection string and I missed the override? It does, yes. So we do builder.configuration.get connection string default. Okay. Yep, we'll do that. That works. So we do get into a challenge here of migration, which I really don't want to get down into right this second. So, how many of you have actually caught a Deflux stream? Am I one of the few that's actually seen a Deflux stream? Or have other people actually seen Deflux stream? It's not even faction. I've only heard tales. Migrations. I hate migrations, but I think it's probably the safest way of doing this, right? For people's benefit. Add database migration. Initial migrations project API. No, we need design tools, and that's the problem. So to get design, you need this in here. And yes, I am cheating a little bit here. I'm going to do a migration initial. Migrations project application help. What needs to be there? .af tools are not working from the terminal. Entity framework core design. Okay, so entity framework core.design. Huh. Yep, Apex, no worries. I must finish this one as well. So, add migration. There we go. API, application DB context. We're going to put migrations in the API folder. Never know whether that's a good idea. Preview. Yeah, that works. If this works first time. Your target project API doesn't match your migration assembly data. Entity framework core tool older than that at the runtime. You can tell how often I restart the PC, by the way. I put it to sleep normally. So yeah, .NET EF tools. There's a way of upgrading the tools. Upgrade EF tools. .NET tool update global .NET EF. Your target project area doesn't match your migrations assembly. Okay, so add migration, migrations project data, start project API. Let's give that a whirl. But my migration kind of worked. It didn't. That's interesting. It added a dependency, but okay, migrations being in the data library. See, I've kind of, what I've done there by doing the migrations in that folder is I've kind of flipped it, and what I was avoiding was putting SQLite as a concept in here, but I've now put SQLite as a concept firmly in here by doing that, and now put them, I should have put them in here. Well, for right now, it's fine. Entity framework core. Yeah, I mean, so this did have. Does this have an override? That's that. EF is supposed to be agnostic. Yeah. Options dot migrations assembly type of account repository dot assembly dot name I'm running out of time and I can't. This will build, but it won't run no matter what I do. So I don't believe, because I don't believe this migration will happen by default. EF is supposed to be agnostic to like which DB you're using. Yeah, but it isn't, because SQLite has things, MySQL has things, SQL Server has things. There's always these differences that make it impossible to actually to use. So what I try and do is keep the data components, the pieces that talk about the database, to a. I don't like using attributes. I don't like using the data definition attributes, etc. They never sit right. It seems like there's too much rules there. This as a MySQL database is terrible, right? I don't want MySQL concepts in here, and this stuff is SQLite. Sorry, not MySQL. Got MySQL on the brain. Right, so there's things that you just don't want to do. But anyway, that doesn't look like it's starting. Yeah, we're missing some pieces there, it looks like. So, yeah, I'm missing running the application, I believe. Oh, it's healthier. But anyway, that is. We'll go to new request collection, water, drink water, test, and that would, the end point here will be the registration, API/registration. So API registration. And we would have, this is going to fail. I know it's going to fail. I'm just going to line it up so that by the time we get the migration run, it's going to be okay. Email is test@test.com. Password is Bob. Confirm password is Bob. We'll get into all sorts of rules, etc. 404 not found. That's not really what I wanted to see, but Fortunately, I do not have enough time to start fixing this. Register account. So what I will do is I will commit this change, right? I know that it's not in the greatest of states, but added SQLite and migration for SQLite. Need to run migration on startup for DB, right? So it is there. All the changes from this stream are there. If you want to tinker, you are more than welcome to. Again, I wouldn't do any PRs right now until we get an established pattern of actual coding, if you're interested in doing such a thing. But all the code is available in GitHub. Which one does that bring up? Does that send a message to the stream? I have no idea. It does. That's my account. I thought I had one for... I do not. I think there's actually... drink water, there we go. So that is there. But unfortunately, I am running very far behind on time. I need to go and get some dogs walked and some food put away properly. I will... so tomorrow... I think we return back to regular stuff, unless there's interest in continuing on this tomorrow. You can let me know. I am looking to see if there's anything that people want to improve in the stream. If there's things that I can do differently, if there's ways I can handle things differently, if there's projects you want to see more of or less of, if you want to hear less talking and see more coding, or vice versa, you want more discussion chances, project reviews, etc. I'm always interested in feedback on what I can contribute to the community in general. So if you do have any ideas, please feel free to drop them in the Discord. Links are in the panels below. Although I think everyone in here right now is in the Discord, so that's okay. Yeah, so we're gonna go. I'm just gonna read over to Apex, right? Or unless someone else got another recommendation. I'm going to go and hang out with Apex anyway. So Apex is doing. He's working towards a game, but he's been working on behavior trees and unit testing, and really trying to figure out the structure of his character stuff. So he's been working hard on evolving those pieces, and it's been quite fascinating for me to watch as a developer, because he's not been using C# for a long time. He's kind of learning some of the concepts at the same time as doing. So I definitely recommend hanging out there for a bit and seeing if you can help a little bit. So thank you for joining me. I will be back tomorrow. Hopefully no school closures tomorrow, so it won't mess up my schedule. I will also try and work on this sound. I do want the background sounds cut out a little bit more. And yeah, so take care. Thank you very much, and I will see you all again soon. Have a great day.